I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this moment to announce that I will be retiring from this program in 2 weeks' time because of poor ratings. Since this show was the only thing I had going for me in my life, I have decided to kill myself.
So what'd she say?
I'm going to blow my brains out right on this program a week from today.
10 seconds to commercial.
Oh, tune in next Tuesday. That should give the public relations people a week to promote the show. We ought to get a hell of a rating out of that.
Won't tell us
50
any.
share. Easy.
Take telecine.
When you're having
Listen,
a great time.
Did you hear that?
What was that about?
Howard just said he was going to blow his brains out next Tuesday.
What are you talking about?
Didn't you hear him? He just said... Howard just said he was going to kill himself next Tuesday.
What do you mean Howard just said he was going to kill himself next Tuesday?
He was supposed to do a tag on Ron Ness and
He said,
commercial.
tune in next Tuesday. I'm gonna shoot myself.
What the hell's going on?
I don't know. He just said he was going to blow his brains out.
What the fuck's going on, Howard?
You wanna know what the fuck is going on, Howard?
I can't hear you.
Turn the studio mic on.
We're back on in 11 seconds.
10 seconds.
32.
Howard, what the hell are you doing? Have you flipped or what?
I think we better get him off.
Get him off.
What's the matter with you fellas? Get your fucking hands off!
Sound off, you stupid son of a bitch! He's going out live! We're in a lot of fucking trouble down here. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
head, you gravity. Gotta stand by this and wait for dumb schmuck.
I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
It is impossible to imagine just how much hot air will be expended at tomorrow's healthcare reform summit at Blair House in Washington. If only the politicians could do something useful with it, like give it to those struggling to breathe in our hospitals at this hour. They can't, but they can give relief to those struggling to pay in our hospitals at this hour. Special comment next. Finally tonight, a special comment about healthcare reform and tomorrow's summit at Blair House. If I prove to have trouble getting through this, I apologize in advance. Last Friday night, my father asked me to kill him. We were just shy of 6 months since he was hospitalized, and it was the end of a long day at the end of a longer week. Not to get too clinical or too grotesque on you, but he'd had his colon removed at the end of September, and that went so well that it was no more complicated than an appendectomy. But what followed was a series of infections, like storms in the monsoon season, one arriving, blossoming, inundating him, my dad shaking it off and cheerfully bouncing back, and then within days another one coming in to flatten him once again. Pneumonia, 3 or 4 times, I lost count. Kidney failure, liver failure. The liver failure got better, remarkably enough. Dialysis, feeding tubes, drainage taps, drainage tubes, breathing tubes. Couldn't talk through that. Then he got strong enough and they could put a cap on the breathing tube, and one day he scared the crap out of a friend of his who didn't know, who came in and gave him the customary, "How you doing, Ted?" only to jump out of his shoes when my father suddenly and gleefully answered him in a strong, full voice, "Surprisingly well." Sometimes Dad swelled up and looked like he was as puffy as a prize fighter who'd had a really bad night. Sometimes he'd get dialysis that was so effective or an antibiotic so specific that he would look like he did 25 years ago. 3 weeks ago, they had found something extraordinary. A nurse noticed what seemed like a minor infection just below the surface of the skin, a kind of super pimple, if you will. It was actually the front edge of a series of abscesses which would be drained and would produce, all told, about 6 liters of infected stuff. 6 liters. You know how much that is? You know what that looks like? You don't want to know. But you do want to know it's been found, because it means the man hasn't been weak all this time. He's been incredibly, inhumanly strong. The abscesses were like swimming pools for these infections. The strongest one would emerge. Then my dad, with the help of the antibiotics, would kill it off. Then the antibiotics would be discontinued, and the next infection would pop out and challenge him. As he pointed out, you know, just like the organized crime families. Then last week they found another abscess of sorts in the chest, so they needed to put drains in there too. This was Friday morning. His surgical team came in to see him. He did his nonverbal caricature of their chief. They all laughed like hell. They numbed him up, snip, snip, plug, plug, and this infection starts draining, and they leave him alone for a while. Then in the afternoon, they changed a few of the plugs the IVs attached to, and the respiratory therapist had been in checking the ventilator and his tubes because there was a leak somewhere. And to improve his dialysis, they changed his dialysis port. And then in the evening, they needed a CAT scan of his chest to make sure those drains were in the right place. And they had to change a dressing on some bad skin. And every hour, of course, the nurse had to come in and draw blood to check how well he was getting oxygen. And then at night, it was time for dialysis using the new dialysis port. And that's when I showed up after this show. My father was a little annoyed, the way he often gets in there, annoyed about all the activity. That day, it was like being Sisyphus with that boulder, only at the top of the hill, when he loses the boulder, it doesn't just roll back downhill, it rolls over him first. He's brave about pain, provided you warn him in advance, and provided the sheer volume of the activity during the day doesn't terrify him. As in terrorism, it is not just when terror happens, it's terror that it might happen. So he's annoyed, but in a good mood Friday night, and as I usually do, I sit down to read to him. Thurber. I've been reading a lot of James Thurber short stories lately. He's insisted I should do it on the show. We'll see about that. But a few pages in, the X-ray technician shows up. They have to take one more picture of him to see if those new drains in his chest are working. And I have to leave his room for at most 3 minutes. And I come back in, and my father is thrashing his head back and forth. You can't hear him. He can't speak at the moment. But you become a lip reader in those circumstances, and this one word he keeps repeating is not tough to discern. Help. He's mouthing the word help over and over and over again. And I get his attention, and he is in full panic. Maybe the X-ray tech hurt his back, or touched my dad's new chest drains. More likely, he did nothing very much at all. But it was just too much for my father. Stop this, he mouths. Stop, stop, stop. And I say to him, I know for a fact they're not doing anything more to you tonight. And he looks at me and he starts thrashing his head again. Help, help, help. I get his attention once more. I ask him, do you want me to stop all of this? And he looks at me and mouths, yes. And I ask him, you understand what happens then? And he looks at me and again mouths, yes. And I ask him, you realize you are not terminally ill right now. If we do stop all of this, it might not be quick. And he mouths, stop this. And I say, trying to joke him out of it or through it, and trust me, gallows humor is your best defense in this situation. What, you want me to smother you with a pillow? And he mouths, yes, kill me.
Scared? You are?
I'm not scared.
Where are you?